Hi everyone, it's Trishna. I hope you're doing well. I actually just got done filming the Magic of Tarot video, and for somebody who doesn't really like to use a lot of divination tools like tarot cards or oracle cards or whatever divination tool that you can think of, as somebody who doesn't really like to do that too much, I am somebody who really likes to look at the signs that show up in my life and read those intuitively. So if I see a flock of birds, that means something to me, and I will connect to that flock of birds intuitively and try to pick up on what message it's trying to share with me. There are certain numbers that mean something to me, and if they pop up in my life, then I will connect to that number intuitively and be like, hey, what are you trying to tell me in this moment? Why did you show up in this moment? What is the message that you would like me to hear in this moment? And I just pick up on signs basically everywhere, whether it's animals or numbers or objects or scents that I have whenever I'm walking around. I smell something, I'm like, oh, I think that means something. What does it mean? Or feelings that I have that just kind of pop up as I go throughout my day. So I do really like to use signs that come up in the world. So I thought I would share with you a practice where you can kind of call upon a sign at will and see what that has to share with you in this moment and reflect on it and do some journal magic, shadow magic, etc. with that. So what we're going to be doing today is some bibliomancy. Bibliomancy is when you take a book and you flip open the pages at random and you settle on one, and then you basically draw your finger down. If it's a full page of text, you draw your finger down to a paragraph at random again, and then you read that paragraph and see what it has to tell you about your future, how it may answer your question if you flipped open with a question in mind, or what guidance that it can give you in this moment in your life. So we're going to be doing that with the Radiance Sutras. So this is basically a book that is a love poem or love song between a Hindu god and goddess, basically sharing their love for one another. And we're basically going to flip through the pages and see where we land. So when I did this, I flipped through the pages and I landed on page 121. I believe it was the poem section number 86. And basically what it reads is, there is a knower who experiences everything. There is a presence dancing everywhere. There is a lover who embraces us all. I am one with that light. I am one with that power. I am one with that love. So then what I did is I took my trusty notebook and I started writing down my initial impressions based off of what I had just read. So from an intellectual perspective, the first thing that came to mind was, hey, this is a really cool statement. I totally understand it on a mental level, on an intellectual level. This is really cool, I love it. But I noticed very quickly that I actually had some kind of emotional reaction to this as well, where I almost felt like, who is this knower who is experiencing everything that I'm experiencing? Like, who is this knower who's coming into my sphere, my life, and almost taking credit in a way for my struggles? And I somehow felt excluded and just like a weird, strange set of emotions of like, who is this knower? I don't know you. Who are they? Hold up. What's going on here? But then I took a moment and I started to really settle into the statement and to really tune into it intuitively and energetically. Now, for those of you who like to use tarot or other divination tools, this is when you would pull a card or look at your candle flame or start looking at your tea leaves to start reading what you're really picking up on an energetic level when you connect with the statement. So for me, I like to do that intuitively and energetically and just work with my own self through clairvoyance and clairsentience. And what I picked up on was that actually when I tuned into it energetically and intuitively, I felt really relaxed. Like I really settled in to this knower. I felt really comforted by this knower actually. It felt really nice to have this buddy in my life who was experiencing everything with me and who could really understand me. So it's kind of an interesting transition that I went to, where at first it was like mental, like, oh, this is awesome, this is cool, I totally get it, to whoa, who is this knower and what are they doing here and what is their play in my life, to it feels really good to have this buddy in my life who really gets me and understands me. And what I really picked up on for me was that this knower is a me. It's another aspect of me, or like a reflection of me. It's another me that is watching me, and that's how I kind of connected to who this knower is that is experiencing everything. So then I got a little bit like, what's going on here? Because a moment ago I was having this emotional reaction that wasn't super positive about this knower, and all of a sudden when I connect to it energetically, I feel this calm connection to it, this very comforting feeling to this knower. And so what was going on there? Like, what created that initial emotional reaction? And what I came to realize is that my first emotional reaction was that I felt judged by this knower. I felt judged by myself, because this knower, when I connect to it, feels like me. It's just another me. So really, I felt judged by myself. And I thought that was so interesting, because I've done a lot of shadow work, a lot of healing work around not really caring what other people think, kind of like putting more weight on myself and what I think than what the world thinks, and really working on the whole other people's judgment kind of thing. And I've done a lot of work on it, and I don't have to do any more work on it. I don't even think about it, because I don't really care what anybody thinks anymore. But I don't think I've ever really directly done judgment work with myself. So that was a really interesting realization. I don't know that I've ever really thought that was something that I needed to do. And actually, as I reflected on that more, and I didn't really come to this realization until just now, like even though I've been like writing it down and everything. But okay, so what I asked then was, and this is where you might pull another tarot card, or look, kind of move around the tea leaves and see where it settles again and the shapes that show up. But what I asked next was like, okay, so what is this judgment of myself? And what I came to realize is that the judgment of the self is different from the judgment that comes from other people. The judgment of the self, so the judgment that comes from other people can sometimes, and very often, is judgment that people are putting on you, that you're good or bad, right or wrong, above them or beneath them. Like, that's usually how somebody judges another person. They do it in the context of themselves. But when you're judging yourself, what is that other context that you're comparing it to? Because it's just you and yourself. And so when you're judging yourself, it's a very different kind of judgment. That judgment is actually you that is measuring yourself up against the best you. You that is measuring yourself up against you living your best life. So when you're getting judgment from somebody else, a lot of times you probably shouldn't listen to it, because they're looking at you and your life and your decisions from their lens and their life and their decisions, and how they grew up and their upbringing. And sometimes their motives and their agendas are not the nicest. They might be jealous of something that you have and maybe judging you so that you don't, spread your wings or something like that. They may not be doing that consciously, but a lot of times that's where judgment is actually coming from. But when you're judging yourself, it's you trying to improve yourself. It's you trying to make sure that you are living your best life. So the judgment that comes from the self is not usually super critical, and if you're getting a lot of critical thoughts, it's probably from judgment from other people that you are taking on. So the judgment that we have for ourselves is usually not super negative. It's not usually very critical. That if you're getting critical mental thoughts or judgment, it's usually coming from outside, and it's just kind of like become a part of your brain and your own thoughts, but it's not actually yours. So the judgment comes from yourself is not usually very critical. It might be kind of stern, kind of like, what are you doing? But usually it's pretty mild, because it's you just wanting to allow yourself to live your best life. And I realized as I was filming this, and I think about this some more, that I do know where I judge myself. I judge myself in the decisions that I make, like the difficult ones, where I go back and forth in my mind, like, was that the right one? Should I be putting the other person above myself? Like, I still have some of that in my head that goes back and forth. So anyways, basically, let's talk about judgments and decisions then, because that may be what you experience as well. So let's say you are somebody who is still hung up on their ex and wanting to bring them back in your life, and maybe that ex isn't really treating you that well, or maybe they didn't even treat you that well when you were together, but for some reason you really want to bring them back in your life. Now, after a while of trying to chase them down, you may feel like a fool or like an idiot or like you must be stupid, because why would you want somebody who hasn't treated you well? Or why would you want this person if they're not even wanting to show up for you? Like, why wouldn't you want to attract into your life somebody who does want to be there? But that's when that judgment right there isn't yourself telling you that you're an idiot, that you're a fool, that you're making the wrong choice. The judgment of the self is telling you, hey, you got to make a choice, and whatever choice it is, you got to live it to its fullest. So if you decide that you want to chase after this ex, I'm not going to judge you for the choice, but I'm judging how you were handling it. if you're going to go for it, then you need to decide that you're going to feel good about it. You need to live your best life. You need to do it to the fullest. Don't question it. Don't hold yourself back. Don't beat yourself up, and pull yourself back. Go full force. So the judgment isn't from yourself, isn't about what you do. It's when you choose to do something, are you living it to the best? Are you giving it your all? Are you living your best life? If you were in a toxic work environment and you decided to leave, maybe the project was unfinished, you don't feel good about it, you're like, oh, you know, like I took another opportunity, it was in the middle of a project, they really needed me. The choice to move may have been really good for you, but you may not feel 100% about it. And that discord within you is that inner judgment. It's yourself saying, hey, you made a choice, and that choice was great. Whatever choice you wanted to take, perfect. I don't care what you decide, but I care how you feel about what you decide. So if you're gonna leave that, and you believe that was for the best for you, then it was for the best for you, but you gotta fully leave. You gotta live your best life. You gotta take your choice and make the most of it. Don't get caught up in the past. Don't get caught up in the guilt. Move forward. So I think that this is really, really powerful information for whenever we are trying to manifest anything in our life, or whenever we're dealing with difficult situations in our life and we don't know which path to take. Ultimately, it doesn't matter which path you take. Pick the one that maybe is easiest for you to be okay with and be happy about. But even that, it doesn't matter. Just pick the one that you want to pick. And then go on that path. Accept that decision as a decision that you made and make the most of it and live your best life. And when you do that, that judgment aspect of you is going to start stepping away, and you're going to start feeling wonderful and amazing. And it's just going to be there observing and still experiencing everything with you, but happy because you're happy. And then when you start doubting yourself and you start judging yourself, that's when it pops back in and it guides you through how you feel about the choices that you've made. So anyways, that was what I've been up to of late. So I hope it was interesting. I hope that maybe you learned something out of it as well. I'm curious about what mental thoughts that you had, first impressions when you heard the poem that I pulled out, and what emotional reactions maybe you had, and if you pulled some cards or did some intuitive work, how did that feel, and how did you were there any differences in the mental, emotional, and the intuitive? And if there were, how did you work through those differences, and what conclusions did you come to, and what are you going to work on? Because now I'm going to be working on myself and judging myself for my decisions and doing a lot better with that and living my best life. So yeah, also if you do Bibliomancy, let me know what books maybe that you use. If there are any good poetry books. I feel like poetry is really a good way to go because, with tarot cards, for example, the symbols are very versatile. So a card may mean something in one reading or to one person, but then that same card may mean something in a different reading or for a different topic like love or career, or it may mean something different in the context of the cards around it. So every card, even though it holds a meaning, it's so versatile and the symbolism can really apply in so many different ways and have so many different associations that it actually is very unique and open to a lot of intuitive information. And I feel like with poetry, it's very similar because the words are, I feel like, a little bit more symbolic and a lot more metaphorical, and there's just a lot more room for interpretation and intuition and really looking at things and reading between the lines and deciphering things in just so many different ways that, yeah, it's pretty exciting. So I think poetry is a great book. But anyways, let me know what books you use if you do this. If you have never done this, let me know if you plan on doing this and what results that you get. And if you have any video topic ideas, let me know. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video.